Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Ditch Decade Diets podcast. I am your host, Lorna, certified food freedom coach and founder of the Ditch Decade Diets Academy. I've spent 10 years in an unhealthy relationship with food, binge eating, over-exercising, and feeling insecure in my body. This podcast is all about helping you get to the root of your food struggles and teaching you how to rewire your brain so you can end binge eating. If you're ready to improve your relationship with food and cultivate more self-love towards yourself and your health, this is the podcast for you. So let's get to it and jump right in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Ditch Decade Diets podcast. It is the new year. Happy freaking new year, badasses. Oh, I am so excited to support all of you guys towards a better relationship with food this year. It's going to be a massively amazing year. So for New Year's, I was at my parents' house, and this was the house, my childhood house that I lived in. And this is the house that I had, a 10-year battle with food and body image struggles and tracking my food and restricting and binging and hating my body. And there was so many memories in this house. And we sat down for New Year's Eve dinner. And first of all, just the whole food situation, it was hilarious because I was thinking back and I'm like, if I was still struggling with my relationship with food, I probably wouldn't have eaten anything at my parents', or I would have, but it would have been different than what my mom planned. So the first thing that we had when we walked in, we actually got there a little bit later than we wanted to. So it doesn't really matter. There was appetizers. We kind of missed them because we came a little bit later. We had like an hour and a half drive. But there was like a dip with nacho chips. And I honestly don't really love nacho chips, but I wouldn't have eaten those a few years ago, because, oh my gosh, the carbs. And then there was like some chocolate. And then my mom made this bread with cheese inside. It was so cool. It was like a specific type of loaf of bread. And then like you cut it, and then you melt cheese inside and you just like put it in the oven. I can't remember what it's exactly called, but I wouldn't have eaten that. There would be no way, like bread and cheese. Heck no, I would have never eaten that. And it was so good. Like just sitting there, grabbing a piece of bread without even thinking twice. I'm like, that looks good. I want it. So I ate it. Like, it's just, you just don't even think twice when you have a healthy relationship with food. So we had that, and then we had chicken wings, which, I love, and I actually have them quite often at my house. We go to the farmer's market and we buy some chicken wings. I love chicken wings. You don't just need to eat plain chicken breasts. Like chicken wings are so good. And my uncle was there as well too, and he made like almost like a dip. It was like hot sauce. I think there was like some butter and some honey. I wouldn't have touched that. Are you kidding me? I would have not touched that because I would have been like, oh my gosh, like, too many carbs, and like, oh, the butter, that's going to make you fat. Like I would have been so up in my head. I would have just ate plain chicken wings. And there's nothing wrong with plain chicken wings if you like that. Like my husband does not like anything, like he's not a dip person or a sauce person. But there was a choice of that or the ones that had the sauce on it. And I chose a little bit of both because the other one had a little bit of spice, and sometimes spice hurts my stomach, but I just ate them without even thinking. I'm like, that's going to be way more satisfying. That's what I want. So I had the chicken wings, and then my mom made cassava fries. Oh my gosh. My favorite, also known as like yucca. So good. And I didn't care how many everyone else ate. I ate a lot of fries and I did not even care. Like those are literally my favorite food. Like it's so good. And everyone had like one small plate, and I went up and I got more unapologetically because why? I love them. They taste good, and I'm not going to apologize for that. Like they're so good. So I'm going to have some. But a few years ago, I wouldn't have eaten any of these things because even for the cassava fries, my mom put a lot of oil on it. Like it's coconut oil, but still that would have been like, oh no, can't, like way too much fat from the butter, from the chicken wing dip. And then, the bread and the cheese and all those things. And it's like, I don't even think about food when I'm with my family. Like that was the last thing that I was even thinking about. Like I was just excited for the freaking countdown. My mom had these little like shaker things and I was wearing like a 2024 thing on my head. Like that's just like the fun part, counting down the time and just like spending that time with my family and just laughing and cracking jokes. Like that was literally like my favorite part of the night. But anyways, I randomly was sitting down for dinner and I just asked my mom, I said, question for you, because she was asking me like, can you explain to me like what you do? Because I used to be a personal trainer, right? So I used to be a personal trainer. And I guess my mom was like with my neighbors or something. And she was trying to explain to them what I do for a living as like a binge eating coach. And, personal training and being a health coach is very different than binge eating coaching, just like recovering from binge eating is very different than dieting, right? And so I was explaining to her what I do. And I just said randomly, I was like, by the way, like, did you ever think to yourself at one point that I had an unhealthy relationship with food? Like, did you ever think to yourself that like there was something wrong and like what I was doing wasn't normal? Like, did you ever think that? And she was like, no, like, why would you say that? She's like, why? And I was like, well, like I struggled with this for like 10 years of my life. Right. And she's like, I didn't really know that it was to that extreme. I didn't really think that. She's like, I saw you, weighing your food and I thought that was a little crazy. And, you made me bake all this like chicken for you because I used to do like bodybuilding competitions. And my mom was like, there's no way that this is normal. There's no way this is right. Like, you don't need to be weighing your food. But like, that's the extent of what she thought, right? She didn't think I had an eating disorder. She didn't think I had a problem with food. She was just like, that's a little crazy. It's a little excessive. Like, that's what she said. Like, I didn't really think that that was right, And I started laughing because I'm like, of course it's not right. Like weighing and tracking and measuring your food and saying no to dessert and, not eating my mom's home cooked meals. Like that's not normal, like you should be able to go to a social event and eat what's there. And of course, if you have digestive issues or, other health concerns that maybe you can't just eat whatever you want, like that's a whole different story, but that's very different than, oh, I really want that, but I probably shouldn't because of the calories. Like there's a very different, there's a difference there. Anyways, and so the reason I wanted to share this story with you is because like binge eating is not a look. I never binge in front of my family. Like, are you kidding me? Like binge eating was always done in secret. And this is why if you're trying to explain binge eating to a parent or a partner, like they're not going to understand because they don't see it. They don't see what you do. Binge eating is not a look. It's not a size. It's not something external. Like it's all internally. It's done in secret, but also there's so many thoughts that are happening behind the scenes in your brain of like, should I eat this? Should I not? Like the dialogue back and forth in your mind, the constant obsession, the thinking about food, like that's what people don't see. My mom never saw that because how? Like it's in your head, right? And so a lot of the times people might just think like you're just very disciplined. My friends would tell me, Lorna's so disciplined. Lorna, yeah, she never goes out to eat. Lorna doesn't eat dessert. Like she's so disciplined. And people knew me as obviously the healthy person in the friend group. So like I understand, but little did they know, like as soon as I went home, I would be ravenous. I'd be starving because I wouldn't eat when I went out for dinner with them. So I would come home and I would just eat the whole kitchen. And like that's the most frustrating part because you feel like almost like a liar. It's like it's one thing to come home and like eat a lot, but it's another for your friends to believe that you're this motivated, disciplined person and little do they know what you're doing behind the scenes. Like that, I think that was like the most frustrating part for me when everyone just thought I was like Miss Perfect. And I really, really, really struggled behind the scenes, And so there's that aspect of like, people aren't going to understand your struggle because it's not something like, binge eating is not something that you see somebody do. But also what's crazy is like, I was like to my mom, I was like, I told you that I struggled with my relationship with food. And to be honest, I was kind of downplaying it when I told my mom back in 2018. And because I didn't want my mom to worry, So this is another thing. Like, you might be telling your partner bits and pieces, but not the full story, right? So like, I told my mom, I was like, I just keep eating a lot and I feel really guilty. Like, I didn't say I feel like I'm blacking out and I'm going through this out of body experience and I'm having constant thoughts about food. And when you leave the house, I eat in secret. Like, of course not, right? Like, I didn't tell the full story. So of course she's going to think it's not that bad because I was trying to tell her that it's not that bad. Like, don't worry, your child is okay. I didn't want my mom to worry, but I told my mom. And again, she didn't really think anything of it. You know what I mean? And like, that's again, another frustrating thing, but I'm sharing this because if you don't share the full extent of what it is that you're going through, nobody's going to understand. Right. But also, like, many of you guys know my story of trying therapy. I only did 3 sessions. For me, therapy wasn't for me. I didn't have a lot of childhood trauma, and I did not feel seen by my therapist at all. Like, I needed tools. I needed support from somebody who understood me, who's gone through binge eating themselves. But anyways, I sat with my mom literally in 2018. My mom pulled up therapists that specialize in eating disorders with me, and she still had no idea that I was like binging, and I asked my mom, I said, we were sitting together and we even looked up therapists together. And she was like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, I didn't really think it was that bad. So I'm sharing this with you because I see you. If you don't feel understood by anyone, that's okay, because I see you. I've gone through this. I know what it's like, and I see you. You don't have to be a certain size to struggle. You don't have to be a certain weight to struggle. You don't have to look a certain way to struggle. It's so much of an internal battle of what's going on in your mind, what's going on behind the scenes. So I just wanted to share that with you because it's so interesting that even my mom, who I lived with for 10 years, where I had 10 years of an unhealthy relationship with food, like, my mom really didn't have an idea. And I'm not saying this to blame her. Like, that's not what this podcast episode is about. I'm sharing this podcast episode to share with you of like, if you feel like nobody gets you, like, I get you. That's what I'm really trying to say in this episode. Like, you can tell your partner, you can tell a friend, you can tell a loved one, but they're never, ever, 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 ever going to fully understand the full picture unless they're like, yeah, you know what? I do that exact same thing too. Right. So I just thought it was so interesting. And, it always makes me so happy just going back to my parents' house, and I don't get triggered, like, I don't get triggered when I go to my parents' house. I haven't binged in 4 years. I just love being back there, honestly, because I'm like, I feel like I'm a brand new person, like, yeah, there's so many memories in my parents' house, but when I go back to my parents' house, I don't think about food and binging. Like, I don't think about that. I just think about like excitement. And, there's so many successes that I've been having in my life. And, things are going so well in my business and my relationships. And Andrew and I have so many plans for this year. And like, I love going back to my parents' house because I just always have good news. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this happened in my business, or we're traveling here, or this thing is happening. And like, that's what happens when you heal your relationship with food. You don't think about food. You go to your parents or you go to your friends and you're excited about like how, like, you're excited about sharing your successes and your wins in your life. Like, there's so many things I've been able to do since healing my relationship with food. And it just makes me so excited to hang out with my parents, to tell them all these exciting things. When I struggled with my relationship with food, I had nothing exciting to talk about because I didn't do anything with my life. It was like, isolate myself, too worried about staying home and meal prepping versus going out with friends. There was nothing exciting in my life that I had to share. And now I'm like, oh, and this happened and this happened. And, we're like, we're traveling here and we're doing this, and like, this thing happened and we met these people and we're going out here. Like, there's so much excitement in my life because I created it, because I healed my relationship with food. I've put in the work to heal. So now I can live such a beautiful life full with so many memories that I can really just share with my family. And it feels so good. So no matter what your situation is right now, you can change your situation, and it doesn't have to take that long. You guys, like 2019 was the year that I was really working on my relationship with food. And, progress doesn't have to take a long time. Like, you can experience wins like very quickly if you have the proper support and the proper tools. But I just wanted to share this episode with you. There's so many things that I want to share in this episode, but I would actually love to have my mom on my podcast. I asked her, but she was like a little nervous. But I was like, it would be so cool for you to just see like how I used to be around food and social gatherings and how you see me now. Like, I thought it would just be really interesting. But, anyways, we'll see if that happens. But I just wanted to share this with you. I see you. If you don't feel seen by anyone, like, that is exactly what I am here for. You guys know I've lived this. I've, struggled with this, and I've conquered. So I see you. I get you. I get it all. I get it all. I get it all. So thank you for listening to this episode. Have an amazing rest of your day. There's going to be so many new podcast episodes coming out for you guys. There are so many different ways you guys can get support from me. Like, I am here for you. I am so freaking committed to helping you make 2024 your binge-free year. Like, I am so committed. I am so fired up. I am so freaking ready. You guys know I'm here for you. So have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll see you guys soon.